Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today we're going to speak about daily profiles, Killzones, and trading sessions. So let's get into it. So if you haven't heard this saying, well, the market never sleeps. And while this is true, we know that the market is only active during certain cycles or certain sessions of the day. And these sessions represent when those banks, institutions, hedge funds, stock exchange markets are active in those regions. So for example, I know Nasdaq, we open at 9:30 New York time because that's where they're located. The Nasdaq Stock Exchange for us will open at 4:30 South African time. And so that is where I begin my search for trading setups. Just a side note, if you want to check the opening and closing times, you just have to look up here. This will tell you when the market opens, when it closes, and it will also tell you when we have bank holidays where the market closes. And so we know NAS 100 is made up of the top performing tech companies, and SMT is the top performing companies, all there in the US. And if you look here on the heat maps for the stocks, you can see exactly what companies make up the S&P 500. And if you want to check Nasdaq, you can simply go up here and check the Nasdaq 100 index, and you'll see all the top performing tech companies. There's Tesla, Nvidia, Google, Apple. And so if you go and check in those individual stocks, for example, if you check Nvidia, you will see that the times up here line up for when Nasdaq opens. So you'll see we're in pre-market. And once we reach 9:30 in New York exchange time zone, we will be opening at that exact same time at 4:30 South African time on the Nasdaq 100 index. You can look at the time here at the bottom. It shows that price action continues until 11 o'clock, and then we begin right at 4:30 again. You can check it's the same for the rest. Nasdaq and S&P both open at that exact same time. And so that's why I will participate in trading Nasdaq or S&P during that time. That will be during the New York session, specifically the New York AM session. So yeah, that's what I mean by certain institutions and markets being active at certain times. And usually we'll have our 3 or 4 major sessions that you'll find that are quite common in the trading industry. If you see in movies, usually they have like a bunch of clocks on the wall in those stock market movies. And you'll see the label, it will say Sydney, Tokyo, London, New York. Those are the times that traders keep an eye on when they're watching out for their sessions. So I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Luckily, TradingView has a bunch of free indicators that can mark this out for you. So for example, if we look here at Friday, between these two gray lines, this is the whole day of Friday, we can grab an indicator to mark out our sessions. And a really nice one, Lux Algo makes very good indicators. And so if we use that, you can see we have our 4 major sessions. This is when Sydney is the most active, Tokyo, London, New York. And so how traders will use this is, if for example you're trading Forex and you're trading any of the JPY pairs, in other words the Japanese yen pairs, so USD JPY or CAD JPY, whichever, you'll find that the yen will be most active during the Tokyo session, UK pairs active during London, US pairs, and so forth. Self-explanatory. So if you're going to be trading the Australian dollar versus the Japanese yen, then I would suggest skipping these sessions altogether and waiting until your pair is the most active to trade. That's essentially what the sessions are used for. Now you might think these are such broad times, you don't want to be sitting hours and hours waiting for your setup. And that's where kill zones come in. A lot of the times you'll find that traders don't even use Sydney session and instead just focus on Tokyo, and it's usually just called Asian session. So with kill zones, we can narrow these sessions down to specific windows where we know the market is the most active or where the most setups are likely to occur. So you may notice that some of these sessions overlap, and this will align a lot with the kill zones. So oftentimes you'll have more volatility during those times. Let me show you another indicator we can use. We go and type in kill zones. There's quite a few you can use. I'm using this one, which I think is honestly the best to use. Otherwise, if you're not familiar, you can use this one by Joshua, and basically it labels our kill zones for us. So this will be our Asian session, this will be our London session, New York AM session, and New York PM session. Let me use my actual here we go. This is a much better looking indicator. So my Asian session in orange over there. So you see I have the PM session marked in purple and the AM session for New York marked in green. If you're wondering what is this is New York lunchtime. There are sessions in between sessions, but they're not major sessions that are highly probable in my own personal experience and opinion. So these, for most traders, are the main sessions. For Forex, you're not going to have a PM session. You're more likely going to have a London PM session, and that more or less lines up with where New York overlaps with London's closing session. So just remember, for Forex, you guys don't have a New York PM session, but you have a London close session. For anyone trading Nasdaq, SMT, the indices, these are the sessions that we will use. So if you want to have a look at the settings that I have here, this is catered to South African time zone, but these are according to American time zone. So the difference you'll see here for me is when I start the New York AM session, and that's when I start at 4:30, because I know Nasdaq opens at 4:30. So officially it is a bit earlier, especially for Forex. Your time starts a bit earlier, but if you want more accurate times, please check link in description. I have a nice PDF with all the times for all the sessions and all the kill zones if you'd like to check that out. So when we frame kill zones is this. How they typically work is, for indices, Asian session is usually the least volatile and usually serves as our accumulation range for the day. Our London session, usually the first couple hours, is either a liquidity sweep that happens, or it moves in a direction where we can frame price action for New York session. So a lot of the times traders will look to London session to have some sort of idea of what New York session will look like. And then finally, New York session is where the most action happens, where most traders participate. And that's when Nasdaq and S&P are the most volatile. You can just see that over time, New York being the most active, being the most volatile. So we can use these kill zones together to anticipate price action. What I mean by that is, if we're going to trade in New York session, we'd like to know what price action was like during Asian and London session. And over time, patterns form between these sessions, and so we end up with daily profiles. And daily profiles can help us anticipate the price action for the day. So our first profile is the London reversal. And what that looks like is London creating a Judah swing or a reversal during London session. And the reason why I call it Judah swing is normally this would trick people into thinking we are going in one direction, only for price to reverse and New York to continue that reversal in the other direction. And if you want to see how those candles look like on the higher time frame, usually the London candle will have this long reversal wick, sweeping liquidity with this long wick, and then for New York session to retrace into that candle that London made and then continue the bulk of the move in the opposite direction. So let's look at example on the charts. So if we look at this example on the 5th of Feb last week, we had a nice New York continuation after a London reversal. You can see price comes down, making this bearish trend, only to reverse during London. And if we mark the height of the kill zone, we see that price does retrace into New York session to then continue the direction higher. And how we trade that is exactly how I've shown. Wait for New York to retrace into London. Find your PDRAs, your points of interest where price will sweep liquidity. And then from there, find your entry point targeting the highs. And if we take a look how these candles look like on the higher time frame, we can see this was the candle on the 4-hour for London. New York comes and retraces with that large candle, fulfilling the bulk of the move. Just like I've shown here, never mind the colors are swapped around, but they are the same thing. This is just an example in the opposite direction. Hope that's fairly understandable. So the next example would be a New York reversal. Similar to the London reversal, this time the reversal takes place during our New York kill zone. And so what this looks like is London, in this example, moves slowly bearish but does not take any sort of key level. And that's when New York comes in, takes out a key level, and reverses in the opposite direction. And this is how the candles on the higher time frame would look like. You can see London is a very small bearish candle leading up to New York, taking out London low and whatever key level, if it is that London low, and then reversing to continue in the opposite direction. So let's look at a chart example. So if you see here, London is trailing upwards, only for New York session to reverse. And so how we trade this is, if you see that London moving in a particular direction towards a draw on liquidity, rather wait for New York session to either make the new high or low, or sweep liquidity before reversing and continuing its intended direction. So if you remember London reversal, the reversal happens during the London kill zone, and we trade the New York continuation. And with New York reversal, we wait for New York session to reverse. But the important thing is to know what happened during London. Now, our third profile is called the New York manipulation profile. And what this looks like is your typical AMD. If you don't know what that is, go check that video out. I explain what AMD is. And this is the most easiest one to look out for. Basically, London consolidates. We see no direction during London. We just accumulate within a range. And then what New York does, it manipulates and distributes, giving us our M and D in the AMD setup. And on the high time frame, this is what it looks like. London will make this consolidation candle. It looks like a doji like this. And then New York will come and manipulate with a long wick to continue the direction. And this is how it looks like on the charts. So this is our London session. You can see we've been trading within a consolidation range. The first part of our AMD setup. And what does price do? Manipulates that range up there, giving us our manipulation for the AMD. And then what's next? The distribution. All the way down. This was last Friday, I believe. Yeah, last Friday. There we go. So how I use this is not only with daily profiles, but with AMD in general. We mark out the range. So the high and the low of the range. And then we wait for either side to get manipulated during our New York session. So this might look similar to the New York reversal. But just remember that London session was trailing upwards before New York reversed. Here we're just moving sideways. Same, but different, right? So there we'll wait for our manipulation up, apply our entry model, and then continue with the trade, targeting the lows in this example. The best first target will be the bottom of the range with any AMD setup. That will be your first target. And that's essentially how we use daily profiles. There is one last profile, and that is a profile that you see that I would not recommend trading. And this is the search and destroy profile. I'll show you now. Okay, I realized I didn't include it in the PDF, but this is all you need to know is with the search and destroy profile, basically what happens is price is trying to take out either side without going in any particular direction. Much like this, but you'll find that none of your profiles fit, and whichever side you're trying to trade, price seems to reverse and come back that side and do the same thing for the other side constantly. I'm trying to find an example, but I would say something like this. There's no real direction or nothing that fits. It's just absolute chop. But that's just another profile that you should be aware of, and I recommend staying away from days like that. So those are all the daily profiles that we get. Just take note that these are guidelines of how these profiles work and how price action works. Remember that nothing is 100%, but it is something that I often use daily. It does help frame your price action for the day. But yeah, if there's anything else that you don't understand, please let me know in the comments. I'll make sure to try and explain things in maybe another video or directly in the chat. But make sure that you check out the PDF that explains these things nicely. And also just another interesting note. So if you are struggling with times and time zones, just try this site. It gives you the clock currently in whichever time zone that you want. It will give you all the conversions in UTC time. Just make sure that you check where your country is, or country, that time zone that you're using. They also give you a nice little history on things like how the time zones are set up, as well as a nice short history on UTC and GMT. Tell you like how the clocks are set and how we get the times that we have now, as well as explaining the daylight savings. And basically what that does is we're just going to be differing by an hour when it comes to trading with US times, or whichever country that uses daylight savings. So just take a note of that. But it is all there in the PDF guide. Other than that, I think that's it for this video. Wishing you guys the best of luck for this week. I'll be continuing with my trading this week, so I'll see you guys on Wednesday with a live. Yes, Wednesday. It's CPI on Wednesday, so after that I'll be trading. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the week. See you guys in the next one.